I have a list of 5 points or 4 points that are very, very central to Chassidish Chinuch from the perspective of the Rebbe that must be underscored. The first is represented by the model of Tzivos Hashem. The Rebbe made Tzivos Hashem. The Rebbe had a certain idea when he made Tzivos Hashem. We know the idea that the Rebbe had when he made Tzivos Hashem from a letter, a very, very famous letter to a professor, to an academic who was also a principal of a school, a psychologist, a mental health professional who was a principal of a school, who wrote to the Rebbe protesting, objecting to the word army. Army of Hashem conjures up violence. You're encouraging the children to be violent, and he told the Rebbe that the Rebbe should cancel it. And the Rebbe wrote him a 4-page letter. The Rebbe is available, and if you can't find the letter, you come to me, I'll give it to you, I'll help you get it. And the teichen of that letter is that the Rebbe said that he's looking at what's going on in America. And what he's learned is that, I'm using now my own English words, there's absolutely no respect in our society. What is the meaning of the word respect? The meaning of the word respect is that some things are right and some things are wrong, even if you're not going to be punished for not doing it, and you're not going to be rewarded for yes doing it. They're just right. An older person is walking, and you're walking, you let him go first. Menschlichkeit, basic Menschlichkeit. It has to do with civility, it has to do with Menschlichkeit. And the Rebbe says, I'm living in a society and I'm watching all this vanish. There's no respect in the civilization. There's no moral, there's no sense of right and wrong. The only reason the person doesn't steal is because he doesn't want to go to jail. And the Rebbe is afraid of the policeman. And then the Rebbe says today there's no reason to fear the policeman because the judges are so liberal, the policeman is afraid to arrest you for a crime that you commit. So the end result is that you have a civilization that's growing up where people have no inner sense of a civilization. You know the old expression, locks are made for honest people. A civilization cannot survive on policemen. Civilizations survive on people being right because it's right. And the Rebbe says, I look at the America which I'm living and that's disappearing. It's disappearing. And the Rebbe said, I thought long and hard. The Rebbe should say, I thought long and hard about this question. And I concluded that if our civilization has a future, children have to be taught Kabbalah Sel. The Rebbe uses the Hebrew. The meaning of the words Kabbalah Sel is that somebody older than you tells you to do something, and that's the reason you do it, period. Your superior tells you to do something, and you do it just because they said. There's no why. And the Rebbe said, the only model I found in the entire society where you have a system that people are in a position of authority. In the Sichas, the Rebbe used to use the terminology, a commander-in-chief. But whatever level of superior officer one is, when a subordinate gets an order, he does what he's told, period. And the Rebbe's model, Rebbe's concept of Tzivos Hashem is that the commander-in-chief gives a Heirah and the children follow, period. That's the end of it. This was the Rebbe's idea of Tzivos Hashem. The Rebbe's vision of Tzivos Hashem was to create a framework where children join, by their own free will, and do what they're told, just because they're told. And the point is, they should get into the habit of doing without asking why. Now the Rebbe didn't make Tzivos Hashem for Chassidish kids, he made it for Yiddish kinder. But it's certainly a value of Chassidish kinder. Value number one in a Chassidish chinuch is Kabbalah. And I don't mean Kabbalah Sale, do what I say or I'm going to smash your head. Kabbalah Sale doesn't mean I'm making you do something against your will. You know, there's a big confusion between the word Kabbalah Sale and Hatolah Sale. When I force you to do something, you didn't have Kabbalah Sale. I was Matil Oil. Kabbalah says that you accept from a superior and a command. In an army, when a subordinate listens to a superior, he doesn't resent it. He's not insulted. That's his job. When you tell a child to do and he listens because you're older than him, he doesn't resent it. That's his job. This is the Rebbe's idea of Tzivos Hashem, to teach children. When somebody else told you to do something, the right thing to do is to listen. And you do it because you want to. And I'm not saying you love it. But the idea that I'm being forced, which is how Kabbalah Sale is. You listen to the kids. Kabbalah Sale to children means I'm a prisoner. Kabbalah Sale is not I'm a prisoner. Kabbalah Sale, and it's part of chinuch, to impress upon children this idea that the adult tells them and they listen. It's good enough. It's correct. That's number one. Number two, and again, I'm supposed to finish. Number two, and this I think is critically important, to teach children halachas hatzrichas. And again, I'm going back to my own childhood. I was a little kid, and from Purim, you were preparing for Pesach. And the whole Elul, you were learning about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And at a certain point, it basically stops. I don't know what the age is, 4th grade, 5th grade. It basically stops. It's not my time, and it's not my job, it's not my place to criticize. How this has to be resolved, I don't know. But every child, every day, has to be taught how to do Yiddishkeit. Not how to understand it, how to do it. Not just when they're in the 2nd grade, when they're 7th grade, 8th grade, and the 9th grade, and the 10th grade, they're a very significant part of the daily involvement with children as mechanchem is to show them bepoil how to do mitzvahs. And when the kids get a little older, you can have a discussion about it. You can bring a sefer in, you can argue about minhagim. But it's never allowed to stop. It's never supposed to come to a point where the kids already know what to do and we no longer tell them. This has to be a constant, because one of the definitions of Chassidus is lifnim yishuras hadin. And that's what lifnim yishuras hadin is, an oiskihit and a mitzvah ma'ases. Children have to always hear about gebraks, not just when they're in the 3rd grade. Children have to always hear about the shiurim for a matzah. It has to be a part of what's going on in school on a regular basis. And the same is true with such things from which we suffer, like where you stand in davening, and where you sit in davening, where you're allowed to speak and where you're not allowed to speak. This has to be regular. It has to be a constant diet. The kids have to they can't learn the same thing over and over again. You'll bore them. But there always needs to be, as a part of a Chassidish Chinuch, children have to constantly be taught how to do mitzvahs ma'asiyos. And of course, when they're younger, it's on a simple level. When they're older, it's on a more complex level. The day we don't include that, what we're giving our children, we're making a very big mistake if we're trying to give our children a Chassidish Chinuch.